Hey there, and welcome to the Unleash Your Greatness Within podcast. I'm excited to share with you another success interview. You see, it was my privilege to interview Kristine Carlson. You may remember her and her husband for their best-selling books called Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. Those books are now a household name, sold over 25 million copies. And I just had the privilege of visiting with her as she talked about bouncing back from setbacks or overcoming failures or tragedy even. We talked about gratitude. We talked about everything. We opened up. Both of us shared some personal experiences that we have had in our lives where we've had to make that shift. And it's not always easy. But you know, Kristine gives us some tools on some things we can do. In fact, halfway through the interview, I confessed to her that I've never really meditated. Although I pray and I think and I write in my journal, I've never gone through a guided meditation, if you will. And she says, "You haven't?" And she actually said, "Why don't we do it right now in this interview?" And I said, "Absolutely." So you're going to see that. Actually, let me show a little clip here.
You want to do one really quick?
Yeah, let's do one. Let's go.
Good. Let's do it. It only takes like 3 minutes. So let's do it. Okay. All right. So sit comfortably and close your eyes and just want to sit upright, a little bit on your sits bones and with your shoulders back and your palms open on your lap, and just begin to breathe. So taking a really deep breath through your nose and allow your chest and your belly to fully expand.
Anyway, you're gonna see this little, meditation process that she does with me here, and it was awesome. Anyway, listen, I look forward for you to be a part of this particular interview. All right, Kristine was great. She had great nuggets to share. All right, let's just jump right into it. Kristine, welcome to the Unleash Your Greatness Within podcast.
Hey, TJ, so good to be with you here.
It's great to have you. Thank you. Your team reached out to me, and when the moment I saw the email come over, I was like, okay, this will be a good interview right here. So you're a mover and a shaker, and I'm so excited to have you on the show.
Thank you so much. I'm super excited to be here too.
This is awesome. Okay, would you start off? Typically what we do with all of our guests is we like to get a little bit of their backstory. Could you share with us your history?
Sure. It kind of goes back to college, actually. I'll just tell you a little bit about my love story because that's very much a big part of my story.
Sure.
I was 18 years old when I met my husband, Richard Carlson, and we had a fairy tale kind of romance. We met, and at first meeting, we were just pretty instantly in love. Much to both of our surprise at that time in our lives, neither of us really were really thinking that was what was going to happen in our lives in college. So anyways, we met, we fell in love, and we got married a few years later and had started our family a few years after that. And so Richard was getting his master's and PhD in psychology. I was involved in a graphic design business, but the overlapping theme in our lives was our spiritual path. We were really on a spiritual path together. We were meditators. We really focused on personal growth at that time in our lives and really for our whole lives. So it wasn't a big surprise to me after Richard's PhD when he started writing books. And yet I like to say ours was a typical overnight success story. It took about 10 starving years, 10 books, and on the 10th book, Richard wrote, "Don't Sweat the Small Stuff." So,
oh, you're kidding. Okay, I don't know if many people know that part of the story. We all know. I have right here one of the, I don't know, let's see what the copyright year is on this. But I knew when you guys reached out to me that I had to have a copy of Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. First edition, 1997, I think. Is that right?
1997, that's exactly right. So we just had our 20th anniversary last year. And so fast forward again, 10 years later, and about 7 books into the series, Richard and I were celebrating the 10th anniversary of Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. By that time, he had introduced me into the series in Don't Sweat the Small Stuff in Love.
Oh,
Don't Start the Small Stuff for Women. I wrote on my own, my first solo book.
mm-hmm.
And the series was off to an amazing, amazing peak in its inception. At that point, he had sold, I don't know, something like 20 million copies at the time.
I read somewhere 25 million. I mean,
well, that's been the last 10 years. We've sold another 5 million copies. So it's been an incredible run. Just a few weeks after the 10th anniversary book came out, our lives took an incredible turn. And Richard was off getting on a flight actually to New York to promote his latest book. And on the descent of that flight, he died suddenly from a pulmonary embolism. Mm-hmm. So we were really at the peak of our lives. I was in my early 40s. Richard was 45. Our kids were in high school. We have 2 daughters. And that's really when my life took a big, huge turn, along with everyone who loved Richard, his fans, my kids, first his parents, my parents, his fans, everyone was completely heartbroken from this, sudden death that Richard departed with, and that's really probably where we should start our conversation, I guess.
No. Well, so how did you initially? Okay, so that's where we want to start. How did you, when you received the call or however you learned of it, how did you initially respond?
Well, as anybody receives a call like that, you're in an ordinary day. You're not, of course, I had no preparation or expectation that I was going to receive that call. So I was literally like pulling into a mall parking space, finishing Christmas shopping. It was December 13th, 2006. And I, picked up that call because it had a New York area code, and I assumed it was Richard calling to tell me he had landed safely. But instead, the nurse and the doctor on the other end of the phone, they wanted to verify who I was. That seemed very weird to me. I was like, well, why do you need to know? And they're like, well, we have Mr. Carlson with us here. And I'm like, what do you mean? He was on a flight. How could he be there with you? And they said something happened on that flight. And I was like, what do you mean? Is he all right? And, on my head, I'm thinking, how do I get to New York the fastest, and to be with him. And then they're like, no, we're sorry to inform you, Mrs. Carlson, Mr. Carlson has expired.
Expired? Yeah.
So, that word in and of itself was really hard to take in, here you are, you're not at all expecting this news, but much less that word was particularly difficult to digest and take in. And I had a really hard time understanding in that moment what they were talking about. In hindsight, I have to say, with a bit of a sense of humor, if you think of what an inspired human being Richard was, expired is actually the perfect word. But for the day-to-day purposes of informing somebody that they've just lost their, significant other, expired is a rather hard word to get your mind around. And, it's probably a language that, this particular doctor was taught or whatever. And just took me, it took me completely by surprise, the whole thing. And, of course, I went into trauma. It was extremely traumatic for me to get that phone call. My, whole body registered complete, I got to get out of here kind of feeling, then, going through the other piece of telling my kids and, calling Richard's parents and, all of that is it's horrible. It's like you once you've gone through something like that, you really feel so much compassion for anyone going through that, because, just the trauma that the whole family, the people, that are involved personally are going through. And it's, I don't think you ever go back to feeling numbed out to that ever again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. In preparation I read over a number of things, watched a few videos of yours. So I kind of got a feel of the great person that you are.
Thank you.
And I thought, I've never shared this before, but I thought I would share, so a few years ago, I come from a family of 8 kids, and suddenly my youngest brother, I'm number 2 of 8. And so I had a 27-year-old, I don't remember exactly, 27-year-old brother who went in for surgery. It was just a simple little procedure. He came home, and that night he never woke up again. And at the time, I sort of understand where you're coming from. That was really painful. Had to make those phone calls, and it was sudden, which made it even more. I was eating dinner at the time, I think, when my mom called, and my kids remember it more than I do, so pain is real in this life for sure. And
there's something about somebody losing their life young, a child or somebody who dies very prematurely, where you just know, wow, this is so premature, and you don't have any answers. Like, how did this happen? Why did this happen? You can't answer.
And Richard was 45, and
45.
that's young.
Yeah, and he was like a fit, really vibrant 45-year-old. He was experiencing some back problems, but nobody dies from back problems.
Yeah, for real.
It's like, back problems, but you don't die from them. But
That's right.
He just, sometimes we just have these biological things that happen, and you can call it. I definitely feel that Richard was receiving a higher call from spirit. There were other signs that he somehow knew something was going to happen, like he was ready for a big transition in his life, and we just didn't know that the transition was going to come in this form. So
yeah, you never know. Wow, that's interesting. Okay, so I'm curious, when you work with people, because I know you work with a lot of people, and I know you have this new book coming out, and it's called Heartbreak to Wholeness. Has it already come out, or is it about to come out?
Yeah, it came out about 2 months ago. So thanks for asking.
Yeah. So that is really cool that you came out. So I'm assuming, what would you say, that was a heartbreak moment, right?
Yeah.
In time.
Mm-hmm.
What did you learn from that? What do you teach from that? I'm curious.
Yeah. So basically in my new book, From Heartbreak to Wholeness, The Hero's Journey to Joy, I've really distilled down, TJ, 10 years of healing into 9 chapters.
Got it.
Where I really want to take people and hold their hands on a transformational journey that comes from this big change. It's not always the loss of a loved one. It could be the loss of your home, the loss of a 40-year career. It could be, some people go through huge grief when they have the empty nest happen because their identity goes into crisis. And we have this identity crisis that comes from this great change in our lives. And this is common for people to go through when they go through a huge kind of loss like this, whether even it's the loss of your health. You're humming along in your busy life and you think you're healthy, and then you go to the doctor and you get that news, no, you aren't healthy. Your life is about to change. People go through a lot of grief in losing their identity with being healthy. So I really wanted to take people on this journey, mostly to bring to life the don't sweat the small stuff principles of mental health and well-being, and apply them to loss. Really show people that we don't always get to choose what happens to us, but we do get to choose how we think about it and how we move forward and how we share our story. A big part of the book is about framing your story with the hero's journey in mind, not being a victim of your circumstances, but realizing that all of life is happening for us. And this is a big shift. It's hard in the beginning of any great change or transition or loss to say that. Nobody says that in the beginning. I didn't either. Everybody sits and says, wow, why did this happen? How come this happened to me? But when you can make that shift to why did this happen for me, then you're dangerously close to accepting what has happened. And you're in that place of acceptance of what is. And whenever we get into that place, We're ready for growth. We're ready for our next level of greatness. We're ready for healing.
All that resonates with me. I've never shared this either, and I'll be respectful and delicate as I share this because my audience doesn't even know this, I don't think, by and large. So in 1986, could you talk about the different pains in life that can affect our identity and so forth? I was 32 years old. My parents had been married 36 years. In 1986, when I was 12 years old even, my family was called up by Nancy Reagan when Ronald and Nancy Reagan were in the White House, and we were selected as one of 6 families that represented the greatest American family. So we received in the White House, as I was a 12-year-old, the Greatest American Family Award.
Wow.
It's not a big deal. I mean, there were many, like your family, there were many great families. Well, I grew up with the mindset that I came from a perfect home. And I never saw my parents argue. I saw them work things out. It was like, I thought, wow, I've really been blessed to be having grown up in this beautiful home where I was loved and we were all respected and so forth. And then suddenly at 32, my dad decides to leave.
Oh, wow.
Now, at the time, 32 years old, I was married. I had a couple kids at the time. I was thankful that I had a family that I could lean on. But I'll tell you, that was so painful for me because it took my reality and spun it upside down. And I was just thinking when you were talking, how we can't always determine, at least initially, when some of those feelings are going to change to the positive, right? Because it took me a good couple months, and I would say it lingered on for about a year of, wow, how could you do this, Dad? You know, that kind of a thing. And just for the record, so I'm clear here, we've been able to bridge that relationship back with him, and he still is, down in another state, but we've strived to kind of bring that relationship closer together. But the pain that came from that, I always bugged me when people as a teenager, people would say, I'd share my dreams with them and they would say, hey, TJ, remember this, life isn't fair. And I used to think that's so negative to say. Why would you say that? Why would you lean towards saying life isn't fair, right? I want to lean toward life is great, life is thriving, life is right. And then at 32, I realized life isn't always fair.
Yeah, no, life is going to deal, we're all going to get dealt our hands at different times. And there's no doubt that we're going to have emotional and physical pain in our lifetimes. That's just part of what the human experience is. However, what you talked about is where our suffering becomes optional. And that is in the mental reactions that you have to what happens. And we can always return to a gentle and loving awareness of those mental reactions. Sometimes it takes more time than others, but certainly if you put into practice, you're in a mindfulness practice, or you're meditating, or you think in terms of having a gentle compassion and understanding for not knowing why somebody does what they do, but knowing that everybody has their own reasons for why they act out, even our parents. But I think what you talked about was so important because it represents that anything that shatters our world on any level creates that space for us to, we go into a space of not really knowing who we are in the face of that information. And even when you're an adult, when you have this idea of who you are and what your life has been built on, that can put you on rocky ground. But what I really want people to understand in my book is that rocky ground is actually really fertile soil for your growth. And that happened to rock your world and shake you up, to get you to look deeper, to look more inward, to find more out about yourself and come to a deeper level of awareness, a deeper level of consciousness. And, that's so much what my journey was about too, because let me tell you, as much as I had been exposed to everything and had spent a lifetime already in personal growth and in spirituality, I wasn't living nearly as awake when Richard died as I was after. And even, that phone call, that news shattered everything for me. And with that, it also opened me up and it expanded my awareness and it expanded my ability to love. And it also made me realize, really realize we hear a lot like how short life is, but when you have that experience, like you did with your brother and like I had with Richard, you never doubt again how short life is. You never doubt again that your life could be over in an instant. And so could anyone else in your life. They could lose their life in an instant too. So it really heightens your awareness and your appreciation for life. It's like not a morbid thought. It's actually really powerful.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, and I'm sure that the listeners can look back on their life, and I think you can see this. Many opportunities have come at the face of some disaster, pain, breakdown, whatever, and coming through that. But one of the things I teach people is always lock on that bright future. That bright future, you got, even though things may be falling apart. When I wrote If You Think You Can, my world was falling apart. And in my darkest moment, I wrote that book in the backseat of my car because I lost everything. And except my family, which was the most important, right? And it was just a matter of 3 months after that, it took off and became a bestseller back in 2005. And my world, like you, seemed to change quickly overnight. So finding that fertile soil, I think, is a great reminder for people. Look for the good in your situations. How can I grow? What can I, in this situation, be thankful for? And that's hard to do, but it's, what can I be thankful? What I came across, and I teach it in some of my programs, I found that there's 3 levels of gratitude. The first level is to be thankful for something. The second level is to have appreciation for something. That's a deeper level, right? To truly appreciate something. And then number 3 is generosity. When you're totally thankful and appreciative, then you will give more of your energy, your time, your respect, your compassion, and those kinds of things. I don't know why I shared that with you, but
that's so profoundly important. And it's also something that you can put into practice when you're in loss. If you just can think of one thing every day that you are grateful for and be present to that and allow that to fill you up, then that can be a light of hope in a person's life that is going through loss as well. And just to back up to something that you said, about looking back on our lives, if you can look back on your life and see in one area how something really negative ended up turning the tables and opening up a window or door of opportunity in another area, that's what we build faith on. That's how you are able to trust that in this situation that you find yourself, as dire as it is, you can remember another time in your life that was also a dire situation that worked out. And, this is how we move forward, by knowing in our heart that things are going to change. Everything in life is temporary. The bad stuff is temporary, and the good stuff is temporary too. It's all temporary. And if you can just, go through your life, do your best and let go of the rest, practice a really great life when things are going well. Practice gratitude, be in gratitude, express your appreciation, be a positive person. Those things are going to help you prepare for loss, and they're going to help your resiliency. I mean, they really will. People always ask me, can you prepare for loss? And I'm like, yeah, you prepare every day for loss in how you live.
Right. How do you define, or what's your practice of meditation? You've mentioned that word a couple times. What does that look like in your world? I'm curious.
Yeah, so a couple of different things. I've practiced all different kinds of meditation since the time I was 20 years old. So,
and for the record, you're teaching a guy here that I don't do structured, so I'm limited in my knowledge here. This is a true question. I don't do a lot of meditation. Do I take time to think, and do I take time to write in my journal, and do I ponder things? Yeah, but I'm curious when I hear people say meditation, what does that look
What
like?
is that? What does that look like? Well, for a lot of people, it looks kind of daunting because, in TM, for example, transcendental meditation, you practice twice a day, first thing in the morning and sometime in the afternoon. And that's a 20-minute twice a day practice. A lot of people, that sounds very daunting to sit and, quietly and still, for 20 minutes twice a day. Now, what I recommend people doing is starting out with what I do with people, and that's a golden pause. You want to do one really quick?
Yeah, let's do one. Let's go.
Good. Let's do it. It only takes like 3 minutes. So let's do it. Okay. All right. So sit comfortably and close your eyes and just want to sit upright, a little bit on your sits bones and with your shoulders back and your palms open on your lap, and just begin to breathe. So taking a really deep breath through your nose and allow your chest and your belly to fully expand, and take in the fullness of that breath, and then just exhale and let it go. And then take another deep breath in through your nose, allowing your chest and your belly to fully expand, and then let go again. This time, as you breathe in golden sunlight, pure golden sunlight to the top of your head, to the tips of your fingers and toes, all throughout your core, just pure golden sunlight. And as you exhale, go ahead and sink deeper. Allow your shoulders to relax, your arms to get heavy. Just sink into your body, into your breath. And this time, as you breathe in all that golden sunlight, place your hand on your heart, activating your heart, opening your heart, and just spend a moment thinking of one thing you feel grateful for. Could be this breath right here, right now, anything. And just spend a moment there, just breathing in that gratitude, filling up your whole body with pure gratitude. And then take another deep breath in, filling yourself with gratitude and sunlight. And just exhale and open your eyes.
It's peaceful, huh?
Uh-huh.
You did a good job. And I participated in it. That's great.
That's kind of as simple as meditation can be, to be really honest with you. It doesn't have to be painful. It doesn't have to be silent. It's just about really quieting your mind, settling into your body, and being in your breath.
Do you, as part of that though, like you did with me, did you have the participant think of something specific that they're thankful for, or feel a sense of gratitude?
Always. That's what a golden pause is. So that's what I call a golden pause. That's a big part of my work and that I do with people. And it's been a big part of Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. It's been a big part of, everything. So, and I like to show people that if they just take a quick pause like that, they get more present, more in their bodies. You become way more responsive to life. You just slow down for just a moment. But, true meditation is a practice. And, all the research now is just pointing to just high levels of creativity. Mm-hmm. It de-stresses you. Boy, if you want the youth elixir, meditation is where it's at, and it helps de-stress your whole body. It's just balancing. It's just good for you. Mm-hmm. You should just do it, TJ.
No, I will. I need to just take time to do it. For me, it's just I get busy. I get in a rush. I've got demands on me, and I'm just go, go, go. And what I'm hearing you say is that's all good. However,
you'll be more effective, honestly, if you just put into practice, 5 to 10 minutes once a day in the morning as part of your, have a sip of coffee. This is what I do, because if I don't have a sip of coffee, I'll fall back asleep. So I just have a sip of coffee, and then I meditate. And then I just get going on my day,
And you just sit in a chair. Like I always see people crossing their legs, sitting on the floor, doing different things like that.
You can sit on the floor cross-legged.
For the record, I can't sit cross-legged.
Okay, so we need to get you on a yoga practice too.
True.
If you think you can, you can.
That's right. But like anything, right? If you think you can, but it has to be of value. Do you see a vision for that thing, right? Don't sweat the small stuff. If you think you can is true principles, and it's great, but you also have to value it, right? Yeah. People wonder why they don't achieve their goals or achieve their dreams, or maybe they try to go after a goal and they give it 2 or 3 attempts when the true laws of nature say you can't cram the harvest, right? It's going to take 10, 12, 15 attempts before you get your win. And
right.
So, anyway, but you have to want it. And so this is good. I'm going to leave this interview with the thought of, TJ, just take 10 minutes a day and spend some time meditating. This will be new for me, and I'll check back up with you and just let you know that I'm doing it.
Yeah, so one thing I want to mention to your audience is that if you do decide to purchase a copy of From Heartbreak to Wholeness, there's a site called FromHeartbreakToWholeness.com, and you can download 90 minutes of the Soul Mantra meditations, and I recorded them as a gift with purchase. So the back of each chapter of the book has a workbook section. It's a soul mantra meditation. The beauty of mantra is it gives your mind a guidepost, something to guide your mind. And then every soul mantra meditation has an intention as well. So it puts your attention on a phrase and then an intention, an actional intention is
which is probably really good. I'm just thinking, based on my research, we think at 800 to 1,300 words per minute. So to have that as a tool will help keep our thinking and thoughts on track.
Absolutely. And then there's a soul inquiry, which is a series of questions, because, you always hear people say, well, it's an inward job, you got to do your inner work. And right. This is how I do my inner work. I ask the question when I'm in a meditative state, and then the wisdom comes. And so I'm really leading people through their own story, through their own inner wisdom. And then there's a transformational writing process that you can do. Oh. So it's powerful. It's a very powerful way to look at your story as the journey.
Oh, that's really great. So the book, Heartbreak to Wholeness, I noticed as I was reading a few things, it's you bring to life many remarkable stories of loss and recovery of other people's lives. Am I reading that right?
Yes, absolutely. It's not just my story. I put a lot of different, I don't know, there are probably 50 different stories in there.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it's not an anthology. I actually write their story as part of the teaching. So as there's a lot of stories in there to show and to example, all the different chapters. So it's not just my story. So it's all different kinds of loss.
Okay. So my last question is, I was writing this down. For the audience, I think it'd be really helpful. And we've touched on it a little bit. And the question is, early on in your career with your husband, Richard, could you maybe share a huge failure or two in getting published, or kind of a little bit of the bouncing back from defeat and failure? Were there any obstacles along the way that kind of stand out in your mind that would be beneficial for us to hear?
Yeah, I have a great story, actually. One night, I think it was Richard's, I'm going to say it was about his 5th or 6th book. Mm-hmm. His publishing career kind of got off to a pretty good start. And then he hit kind of a speed bump in it. And at that time, we had 2 very young children, 3 and 5 years old. And man, we were scrambling. I mean, we were just trying to meet our bills, and, we're kind of starting to get into debt. And he and I met at our health club for dinner. We had a babysitter, and I had never seen Richard look so despondent. I mean, this was a guy that just woke up with a light every day, smiling, happy guy. He named his dog Happy when he was 12 years old. So it was not in his nature to be this way. And I said, "What's up? What's wrong?" And he just looked at me and he goes, "God, I only got like $5,000 for," it was called Shortcut Through Therapy. The book Shortcut Through Therapy got an advance of $5,000. We worked a whole year on that book. And this was prior to book proposals and so forth. So he's like, "Wow, I was expecting, at least 5, 6, 7 times that." And he's like, "I don't know what we're going to do." He had a private practice and he was working hard, but that was a big hit for him. And he said, "I might have to go get a real job." And I said, "Well, wow, you can't do that because you love to write. Like writing's your passion. You can't do that." He's like, "I might have to quit." And we left that place and we both got home. He got home just a little after me. And as I walked in the door, the phone rang. And I went to pick up the phone and I said, "Hello," and the woman on the other end says, "Hi, this is Alice McGee from the Oprah Winfrey Show. The strangest thing just happened. About 15 minutes ago, I was bent down in our Oprah library and your husband's book, You Can Be Happy No Matter What, popped off the top shelf and hit me in the back of the head while I was looking for a book on stress management." And she said, "Do you think there's any way your husband could be on a plane tomorrow to Chicago to the Oprah Winfrey Show?" Richard walked into the door and I said, "Hey, hon, do you think you can be on a plane tomorrow to the Oprah Winfrey Show?"
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And the only other time I saw him that joyful was when we had just delivered our babies.
Yeah, right.
He had just the most joyful expression on his face. And, the interesting thing was that happened to her about the time he was saying, "I'm going to have to quit writing." So here we were, in the face of like a lot of bills piling up, all of that. He was about to quit. And this is what happened. And what that showed us is that most people entrepreneurs or anyone, most people do quit just before something big is going to happen. Well, clearly Spirit said, you have work to do. You've got something big coming, but we need to get you to the next place. So, this is a real miracle moment, and you can't take it as anything else than that. It just is a miracle that happened. It didn't turn Richard into a star yet, but it showed that his star was coming.
Yeah, that's really good. And I just want to emphasize, because what you said is really powerful. Whatever it was, the universe, it's law, whatever it is, sometimes those breakthroughs or those wins don't come until you're pushed all the way to the point where you're really a millimeter or a fine edge from quitting. And what you guys did is you were a great strength to him by saying, "No, you love writing, right? We've got to figure out another way. Something's got to happen here."
I was ready to go work at Nordstrom's. Seriously.
Right. No, I get it. But you didn't. You could have gone out that day, or he could have gone out that day and got that job, but he didn't. He delayed it one more day, right? And
we delayed it 20 more minutes.
Yeah, 20 more minutes. Right? And then that breakthrough came. And you can never know when those breakthroughs are going to come.
You don't know.
But hang in there. If you don't, I always say, I write, and if you think you can, if you don't give up on your dreams won't give up on you. But
that's so powerful.
Long enough. And being married, sometimes that's tough, right? Because maybe you're the type of person that's visionary and has the vision, and you can disassociate the pain more than your spouse can or your significant other. And it's tough. So everybody lives at a different place. And so having good communication, helping to clarify that vision, going out and working, right? You can't sit and not do something. You've got to actually take action. And the more action you'll take, the more chances you have for success. Anyway.
That's so true. And I guess I probably always have had the outlook that everything's going to work out. That's just something that I tell myself all the time, like, oh, you know what? It's okay. It's going to be fine, Yeah,
totally. We share that. Sometimes, I meet people that, well, I need the evidence that that's going to work. No, Trust the unknown. If your goal or dream or whatever you're working on is a good thing, and you keep taking action on it, you can't help but win, right? Eventually, as long as you don't give up too early. Anyway.
It's a lot of times it is time, it's putting skin in the game, it really is. It's about staying in the game long enough to see it come to fruition. And it's hard. I mean, that's the hard part of life, isn't it? It's just having the discipline, having the perseverance. But most of us who have had a level of success in our lives can always track it to that level, that decision, that commitment level of staying in the game.
Yeah,
and allowing for time to let things work their way out. A lot of times, we've all experienced this with the whole online world. You have a launch or something and it just, it's like, doesn't work out like you thought. Public didn't receive it well, and you just have to go, okay, well, we'll try again next time. And that's just the way it goes in this world, and
well, let me tell you, Chris, you have a great spirit about you. You have a great energy. I can feel it. You're a good person. I bet if I met your daughters, I bet I'm sure that they are just as great. I think.
Thank you. I think so.
Yeah, I can only imagine you as a mom.
And I have 4 grandchildren and 5 on the way, a 5th on the way. So.
Oh, hey, I'm not there yet, but I hear being a nana or a papa or whatever is really a great thing.
It's an amazing thing. It's the very best thing.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, Chris, thank you for being on the Unleash Your Greatness Within podcast. This was a pleasure to visit with you. And I know that we just, talked about the tip of the iceberg. We talked about some themes, but I would encourage everyone to go to the bookstore, go to Amazon, go to what was your website again? Will you share it?
From heartbreaktowholeness.com.
From heartbreaktowholeness.com. Go there, and as she mentioned earlier, there is some meditation
some soul mantra meditations. That's part of the book, but they're downloadable for you as a gift after you buy the book. So
that's really great. Wow, your team was great to work with. You're great. Thank you for being on the call, and let's stay in touch. All right.
All right. Thanks, TJ. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Podcast listeners, thanks for listening. You've taken time out of your schedule, and I really appreciate it. Now, do me a favor. If you like what you heard, star it. Thanks. Now go unleash your greatness within.